The Chinese military announced the exercise, but within just over 10 hours, they suddenly declared that it was over. It was so quick that the people are questioning up until now whether this was a stage drill, perhaps a flash mob for the sake of shooting a TikTok video like what the Chinese youth like to do. Of course, the CCP's information warfare targeting public opinion within Taiwan hasn't stopped. They've coordinated with the certain pro-China media outlets in Taiwan, including social media and traditional media, to spread the narrative that all of this was to punish President Lai for what he said during the National Day speech. Hi everyone, this is Stan, your favorite Polish Taiwan YouTuber. Hope you're all having a great day. Welcome to today's show. Today let's talk about the recent Chinese drills around Taiwan. This time the CCP's joint Sword-2024B military drills were accurately predicted by Taiwan's military and the United States. However, what no one anticipated was that it would be a flash mob of the military drills. On the morning of October 14, the Chinese military announced the exercise, but within just over 10 hours, they suddenly declared that it was over. It was so quick that the people are questioning up until now whether this was a stage drill, perhaps a flash mob for the sake of shooting a TikTok video like what the Chinese youth like to do. Of course, the CCP's information warfare targeting public opinion within Taiwan hasn't stopped. They've coordinated with the certain pro-China media outlets in Taiwan, including social media and traditional media, to spread the narrative that all of this was to punish President Lai for what he said during the National Day speech. They even deliberately included Taiwan's civil defense organization, the Kuma Academy, along with its sponsor, Mr. Robert Cao, and the Academy's founder, current legislator Puma Shan, on the CCP's list of stubborn Taiwan independence advocates. And yes, China has death penalty for the Taiwan independence supporters. But these excuses for holding military drills are very far-fetched for any country. It's unreasonable and even absurd to hold drills because the president of your neighboring country said something in his speech. The Taiwanese government also shared the information with the media on what the CCP was planning in advance. On October 7th, Reuters quoted an anonymous Taiwanese official, who, based on Taiwan's intelligence, stated that regardless what Lai Ching-te says on October 10th, the CCP is likely to hold military drills around Taiwan, naming the exercise Joint Sword-2024B. By October 9th, one day before President Lai Ching-te's National Day speech, even the US government had preemptively stated that the National Day speech cannot be used as an excuse by China to apply military pressure on Taiwan. This essentially preemptively debunked the future excuses by the CCP that they might choose to harass Taiwan. On National Day itself, President Lai Ching-te's speech continued to extend goodwill towards China, emphasizing peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait and the well-being of people living on both sides, stressing peaceful coexistence. Such a peaceful and rational speech was highly praised by the international community. So how could it possibly serve as an excuse for the CCP to suddenly announce the Joint Sword-B exercise? So regarding the Taiwanese government predictions, was Taiwan's intelligence collection particularly accurate, or it's the CCP's behavior is simply very predictable? Let's keep observing. Besides mocking the CCP, of course, we also need to understand the adversary. Why is it called the Joint Sword exercise? I think I have to give you some details here. The term joint refers to the coordination of different branches of the PLA, People's Liberation Army, including the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Rocket Force. These forces coordinate with their specialized equipment and auxiliary forces in multi-service, multi-wave, multi-aircraft, and multi-missile types of operations. Under Xi Jinping's orders, they carry out joint blockade, or they use a different word in Chinese, fengkong, that can be still translated into blockade, but not fengsuo, which means blockade literally. Joint fire strikes, joint air control, joint sea control, and joint anti-submarine actions against Taiwan. Since the CCP is still unable to fully execute a blockade, fengsuo, they use the term control blockade instead. And now let's look back at the first excuse for the CCP's Joint Sword series of exercises. It was in August 2022, when then US Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. This was the first visit by such a high-ranking US official since the break of diplomatic relations in 1979. That same year, at the end of February, Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. There are many videos on my channel about Russia's full-scale invasion and how Ukraine has been fighting back. Pelosi's position symbolized the will of the American people, as she has American votes behind her, unlike the CCP officials actually, in supporting Taiwan, and demonstrated to the world how to break the CCP's intimidation tactics. As I said back then, Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, what does that have to do with China? Why should this be an excuse for a military exercise encircling Taiwan? Did the speaker's visit harm China in any way? Of course not. If you still remember, after Pelosi announced her visit to Taiwan, the CCP initially didn't know what to do about it and how to handle the awkward situation where their threats failed to deter her. So they temporarily shut down Weibo, which is Chinese Twitter or X, and used state media to publish fake news, trying to distract, basically in an attempt to distract their nationalists and drag them into a parallel reality. For example, at that time the Global Times claimed foreign media reported missile strikes on Taoyuan airport, while the People's Daily falsely reported that PLA fighter jet Su-35 crossed the Taiwan Strait. Another state media outlet wrote that foreign media stated that Grand Hyatt Hotel, the hotel where Nancy Pelosi stayed in Taiwan, is haunted. So that's just what Chinese media always do. Make up lies and blame others for them. Meanwhile, within Taiwan, White Wolf, Zhang Anle, led some members of the pro-unification party to protest in front of the Grand Hyatt Hotel. Well, it was also staged, there were many cameras and they were making videos for social media. All that mattered was getting footage for TikTok. Although the CCP was in its meltdown mode, they didn't dare confront the US directly. So the day after Nancy Pelosi left Taiwan, they launched a 5-day military exercise, the first joint Sword. Although the CCP state media acted foolishly, we must also pay attention to how this exercise established a new normal for the CCP's attempts to destabilize the status quo. Here is a breakdown of the changes year by year. The first joint Sword, which took place in 2022. The PLA not only fired 4 ballistic missiles over Taiwan, but also had warships maneuvered to the eastern coast of Taiwan, effectively encircling the island on all sides. Joint Sword of the year 2023. China's aircraft carrier Shandong participated in the Taiwan encirclement exercises for the first time, and the scale of the Air Force's mobilization surpassed previous drills. The Air Force's goal was to simulate attacks on Taiwan's military targets. May of year 2024, Joint Sword A. The CCP deliberately held this exercise after President Lai Ching-te's inauguration speech. This time they included the islands of Kinmen and Matsu in the drill range, with a large number of Chinese Coast Guard ships participating. The focus was on gray zone operations, as Chinese Coast Guard ships entered Taiwan's 24 nautical mile zone. Even after the drills ended, these ships stayed on the outskirts of the zone for about 2 weeks. The CCP used this tactic of blurring boundaries to assert the concept that the Taiwan Strait is China's internal waters to the international community. This is why the exercise wasn't just a traditional military drill, it also constituted a long-term legal battle. Then it was September 25th, year 2024. The CCP launched a DF-31AG missile into the Pacific, while simultaneously deploying the Liaoning and Shandong aircraft carriers, and it was a part of a preparation for the following operation, preventing any countries in interfering with the CCP's aggression. October 2024, Joint Sword B. The exercise area expanded to include the sea northeast of Keelung, bridging the operation closer to Taiwan than before. Multiple aircraft and ships entered Taiwan's contingency zone, meaning the space between the ADIZ, which is Air Defense Identification Zone, and the 24 nautical mile contiguous zone. The drill focused on controlled blockade of Taiwan's key ports and crucial sea areas. The role of Coast Guard ships was also emphasized. Coast Guard fleets circled Taiwan's waters, rehearsing boarding inspections and the seizure of military supplies and energy during a blockade scenario. Does this ring a bell? Earlier this year, there were several instances where the CCP tried to forcefully board Taiwan's civilian vessels for inspection and search. I believe this was a part of their regular training. Additionally, this year the Liaoning aircraft carrier participated in the Taiwan encirclement drills for the first time. It initially circled the Philippines, then passed through the Basha Channel and entered the southeastern waters of Taiwan. On board there were H-6K bombers, with the goal of simulating attacks on military targets in Taiwan's eastern ports. Meanwhile, Chinese Coast Guard ships navigated through the waters between Taiwan and Japan's Yonaguni Island to rendezvous with the Liaoning. On October 16th, National Security Bureau Director General Tsai Ming-yen mentioned in the Legislative Yuan that the possibility of Joint Sword C exercise cannot be ruled out. He also noted that military actions are only a part of a broader hybrid pressure and united front strategy aimed at dividing Taiwan. Militarily, as I mentioned earlier, China has been steadily intensifying its encirclement exercises. Economically, the CCP plays a two-phase strategy with Taiwanese businesses. On one hand, they impose anti-dumping taxes and investigations, abruptly restricting the scope of tariff reductions under the ECFA. They have cancelled tax exemptions on certain fruits, vegetables, and seafood products. What they do is they basically selectively treat goods from countries based on if they're pro-China or not. And the more compliant countries are rewarded. This strengthens China's united front efforts towards Taiwan agricultural sector and highlighting the One China benefits. Diplomatically, the CCP misinterprets UN Resolution 2758, which involves Taiwan's sovereignty and amplifies its One China narrative on the global stage. China tries to say that the resolution applies to Taiwan's sovereignty, but it doesn't. And China is amplifying its One China narrative on the global stage. It obstructs Taiwan's participation in international organizations like the WHO and pressures Taiwan diplomatic allies, shrinking its international space. Legally, the CCP introduced the opinions on punishing the crimes of splitting the country and inciting splitting the country by Taiwan independence diehards, referred to as the 22 points on punishing Taiwan independence. In terms of its united front tactics, China creates the illusion of cold government, warm people by inviting internet influencers, celebrities, local leaders, grassroots workers, and young people to China, under the guise of local exchanges and cultural exchanges. These efforts are a part of China's united front work. Additionally, they just bombard Taiwanese social media with information overload and propaganda, mixing CCP's ideology with disinformation to confuse the Taiwanese public. In conclusion, everyone should cherish the peace we currently have. This relative peace is the result of many people's efforts, preventing China from taking over Taiwan so far. And this also includes my own efforts, and efforts of everyone who speaks for Taiwan. For example, this year with the Resolution 2758, many of us went to the United Nations to protest and voice our demands. Those of you in Taiwan, wake up and stay vigilant. Also, try to wake up the people around you who follow opinion leaders that have taken benefits from China and now try to portray Taiwan as a bad guy. We also need to pay attention to international affairs and take a broader view on the military actions of authoritarian alliances. This August, after Iran joined the conflict with Israel, the US moved its USS Abraham Lincoln carrier to the Middle East, followed by the USS Theodore Roosevelt. This sparked international discussion because, as naval news reported, the redeployment of the Lincoln from the Indo-Pacific 7th Fleet to the 5th Fleet in the Middle East left the US without a carrier in the South China Sea for at least 3 weeks. This led to the Chinese Coast Guard ramming Philippine vessel in their hybrid warfare provocations attempt. At the same time, tensions between North Korea and South Korea escalated during China's joint Sword-B exercise. Kim Jong-un's sister Kim Yo-jong accused South Korea of sending propaganda leaflets via civilian drones to North Korea, calling it a violation of international law and a severe military attack, completely ignoring North Korea's own 28 incidents of sending trash balloons to South Korea this year. Meanwhile, Russia's invasion of Ukraine remains in a stalemate, and both Ukrainian President Zelensky and Korea's Defense Minister Kim Yo-jong confirmed that North Korean officers and soldiers are now present on the battlefield in Ukraine. So, in these times, authoritarian regimes are aggressively united to harass, intimidate, and conduct military exercises against democratic nations, and even wage wars. It is time for democracies to unite and actually stand up to the crisis posed by these dictatorships. The invasion of Ukraine has shown the world how slow and uncoordinated Western countries have been in providing assistance, and this resulted in the deaths of many Ukrainians. This is a wake-up call for the world. Authoritarian regimes have already united. We cannot afford to hate and fight each other, nor should we continue to indulge in the fantasy that we can profit from dictatorships without facing the threat of invasion or infiltration. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe and share. This is Stan. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.